Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys my top 10 favorite cold steel knives of all time. This is a list that is long overdue for this channel. I review a lot of knives. I literally upload twice a day, and I've been doing it for almost 2 years now. You know, back when I first wanted to do this video, I just hadn't handled that many cold steel knives. But now that I've handled a wide variety and reviewed a wide variety, I kind of, I've got a good idea of what my top 10 favorites are. Keep in mind, this list is just based on my own personal, this is my favorite. I'm not necessarily saying that these are absolutely better than everything else that's offered. I know that cold steel fans are pretty hardcore, so there's not really a way to make this a perfect list. So I'm just going to share with you guys what my favorites are and explain them as quickly as possible. Thanks so much to my generous patrons who are supporting me right now. There's a link for Patreon right down below, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. These will be in order as far as my top 10 goes, from my least to most favorite. And I'll explain why. I will also be linking the ones that are currently available right down in the description, so those of you who want to check them out can absolutely check them out. Number 10, and purely because it is so ridiculous, I do not consider this knife to be utilitarian in almost any way other than the fact that it is well sharpened and well made. And that's the cold steel Espada, specifically the Espada XL. This thing is a hulking freak of a knife, and it is absolutely ridiculous. I'm sure that there are people who carry it and will, just really push the idea that it can be utilitarian or can be beneficial in certain circumstances. However your philosophy of carry or use or whatever that is, mine is, it needs to be practical in the pocket and be able to open and cut and close and put back in the pocket as few steps as possible with as little flash as possible, right? Despite me being an enthusiast and enjoying some of these crazy elements, the Espada XL especially is not a convenient item to carry. But oh my goodness, is it impressive. It is incredibly well made, right? Now there's the whole Espada series is kind of included here. These knives generally range anywhere from about $100 all the way up to $329 for the most premium one, which is likely what you're seeing on screen right now. I think the most premium one's S35EN G10, and correct me if I'm wrong, cold steel fans, nickel bolsters. This thing is wild. Made an appearance in the Expendables. I can't remember which. Was it the knife he threw in the dartboard? I can't remember. You have to let me know. Yeah, I handled it. I think it was the large that I reviewed, and I was like, this is really impressive. You just expect a knife like this to be kind of junky and goofballish, because that's what we see generally. You see the crazy designs mixed with the junky, materials. No, this is actually really, really well made, and it does cut and it's well sharpened. So I think it deserves a spot as number 10. Moving on here, number 9. It's actually the only fixed blade on the list, and this is the Cold Steel SRK. These come in compact. They come in the large. I think it's the SRK 5. And both of these, base versions are fairly inexpensive at about $59, something like that. And then you can get a G10 and S30, not G10 and S30. No, it's Sanmai. You can get a Sanmai version of this for $159. This is a wonderful fixed blade. Whether you're, it's for camping or survival or whatever. Not that I'm a survivalist or anything, like a professional camper or anything like that, but it's very straightforward. Nice, robust 3/16 stock. The steel that they're using on the base version is called SW, I don't know if it's a proprietary steel or if it's based on ASI 108. I'm probably getting this wrong. I don't think it's anything mega premium, but it's likely just meant to be super tough and super easy to sharpen. I'm gonna guess it's in the same ballpark as 1095, right? But that's a guess. The Sanmai stuff is probably going to be stainless and much more premium. It's mostly about the design of this knife. Very straightforward, very sort of military-esque, kind of tried and true design. I'm just a big fan of the overall look of this. And the one that I had was very nice. It was really impressively done. And I was shocked to find out that these knives were only $59. So, big fan of the SRK. Moving on here to number 8. Have to include the Cold Steel Tough Light. For $30, yeah, I know it's AUS-8, but for $30, this is a triad lock. The thing is so ridiculously durable, I just don't care. For the price, I don't care that it's AUS-8. I have put my Tough Light through hell. Absolute hell. I have thrown this knife. It's fallen off the roof. I've stepped on it. I've dropped heavy loads of shingles on it. This thing is legitimately tough. For 30 bucks, this is a throw around beater knife, and it's wonderfully ergonomic. It has a wonderful blade shape, right? Well, you could use a utility cutter and get the same. Okay, but a utility cutter is boring, right? It's boring. I'm a knife enthusiast. I want to carry something that's a little bit more interesting, and I love the triad lock on this thing. You can abuse this. You can. And you know what? If you somehow manage to break it, oh well, it was 30 bucks. Mine is absolutely and completely and totally beaten down. In fact, I'll take an opportunity here to show you the one that I have. And it was recently kind of cleaned up, right? But this thing is still going. This is my original, and it's just fine. In fact, it has a busted washer in there, and it is still locking up completely and totally solid, and is plenty easy to manipulate. I love this knife. I think it's absolutely fantastic and worth the money. Moving on here to number 7, the Cold Steel Recon 1. This is a big knife, definitely, but this is kind of like when you do an XL knife, and they have different sizes of the Recon 1, right? But the standard is big, really big. But Cold Steel does big knives really well. Ergonomic lines are fantastic. This is definitely what I would consider to be a take it on a camping trip sort of knife, right? Wonderful in terms of the cutting geometry. The materials are fantastic too, if I'm not mistaken. There might be multiple forms of it, but I know that this does come in S35VN. It does come in S35VN. Honestly, the price on it's $99. These are made in Taiwan, but really, really good. If you've never handled a cold steel knife, honestly, you look at them and you think, yeah, it's got like the real tactical, like if you were like me, I was kind of nose in the air to cold steel because I was like, these are mega ultra over tactical, like, you know, they got to be just slapped together, right? It's just they're selling the presentation. No, these things are high quality. Recon 1 also using the cold steel triad lock, which makes it excellent. I'm not going to say that they're going to cover it if you break it doing something you shouldn't be doing with a knife, but you really can put these things through a little bit extra, and they're likely going to survive, right? Excellent. Absolutely a huge fan of the Cold Steel Recon 1. Moving on here to number 6, the most hulking monster utilizing the triad lock, the biggest triad lock I've ever seen, and that's the Cold Steel 4MAX. This thing, once again, is this is like the camp knife that you take if you're like, well, I don't have a hatchet, I guess I'll bring my Cold Steel 4MAX because the blade is heavy enough to where you really could do some light chopping with this and it'll be just fine. Monstrous knife. Am I mistaken that this knife is 10 to 10.5 inches overall? You can get this thing in a light version. I believe it's AUS 10A for, what is it? Something like 110 bucks. I know there are variants out there that are S35VN and G10 for something like 360, and I think there were 20 CV variants for a little over 400. I don't know if they're all still available. The S35VN ones make sense, and the AUS 10A ones make sense because of, you know, the environment that they're meant to be used in. Can you EDC it? You have deep pockets and a strong enough will and desire. I mean, yeah, but it makes more sense, I think. These are outdoor hard-use tools, right? The 4MAX and a lot of knives in Cold Steel's line are definitely overkill. I've made this argument before. I'll make it again. The triad lock is literally so strong that even on a knife like the 4MAX with massive blade geometry, you're much more likely to damage every other part of the knife before you hurt the lock, right? So if you destroy the blade, you snap it, you break the handle right, the lock's still intact, great. Can't do much with just 2 pieces of shrapnel that are being held together by the triad lock. But still, though, everything is still, it's made well enough that these go so far above and beyond that you really don't have to shy away. Even when you're forking over a lot of money for a premium version, you really can just use and abuse them and you're going to be fine. Cold Steel 4MAX, absolutely one of my favorite knives. Moving on here, second half of the list, number 5, and that's the Cold Steel SR1, and that's the light, which I've got right here in Tanto, and then there's also the G10, which I'll show over here. These knives both come, whether you're going with the light or you're going with the premium ones. The G10 one, by the way, is S35VN. They come in Tanto or the clip points. So you can kind of pick what you want to do there. The light versions come in at about $59. Is that correct? I'm looking at my notes here. Yeah, $59. And then the G10 and S35 variants come in at about $160. The reason I like this more than the 4MAX is because you're essentially getting the same, very nearly the same level of overall robustness in a design that is quite a bit easier to carry despite being so gigantic. These are thick, 190 thousandths on the spine. The Tanto one has basically an indestructible tip. These, the base versions of these are HCR 13 MOV. I feel like they should move the base SR1 lights to AUS 10A. I mean, I know it's not the greatest steel in the world, but it's definitely better than HCR 13 MOV. Honestly, for what you're going to be using these things for, I don't know that it'll really matter at the end of the day, because if you're using it the way that it's intended, it will probably be thrashed, right? These are basically folding pry bars that are sharpened. The G10 one is definitely more premium feeling, but both of them are incredibly heavy. Again, triad lock, massively robust triad lock. I believe these were designed by Andrew Demko, even though I don't know that it will officially say that anywhere. I think that's the case. I'm not 100% sure. Very ergonomic, much more wieldy than the 4MAX, and I honestly like the straight lines on it. These are great. This is such an awesome design. So whether you want to save some money and go with the light version, or you want to spend a little more and have a premium version, I don't think that you can go wrong with the SR1. Definitely carrying over that really robust feeling. Moving on here, another knife that I've actually got in my possession, and that is the Cold Steel Code 4. We're getting into the realm of actually really good for EDC, and the reason that I say this, when I say everyday carry, like for an everyman who's just doing normal, you're not going out camping, hiking, surviving, you're just day to day, you're just getting your knife out and using it for little things here and there, but it still has that strength that you want. This is a much thinner, in fact, we put it up against the SR1, the Code 4 is much thinner, much easier to carry, but it is still a large knife utilizing the triad lock, and honestly can still handle a massive amount of abuse. It's also still a pretty big knife. I know I'm not measuring all of these, but just so you guys know, the Code 4 here is still coming in at 8.5 inches. The one that I'm showing here is an older version that is in CTS XHP. Unfortunately, they don't use that steel anymore. I love XHP and I like it a little. I think that I might prefer it maybe in some circumstances above S35EN, especially for edge retention, right? But S35EN is tougher, and perhaps it was a little less expensive for them, so maybe that's why they switched. In any case, you can't go wrong, especially considering this knife. And by the way, these are not titanium scales. People get that confused all the time. These are aluminum scales. You can go check the specs if you want to, make sure. Aluminum on the Code 4, and these come in at 80 bucks. This is actually a good EDC knife. You can get these in clip point, or you can get them in Tanto, whatever. I think the clip point's probably a little bit better for EDC and for sharpening over time, because that edge, you don't have to sharpen two separate edges. Yeah, again, strength of the triad lock. I mean, the triad lock's not the easiest thing in the world to manipulate with one hand. It can be done, right? But, I mean, the thumb studs work, even though I just messed that up right there. Let's see if I can do that a little bit better for you guys. The thumb studs definitely work, so you can do that, but great ergonomics. It's a little bit slippery because it's not, the G10. I think it would be cool if they did a version of this in G10 with some texturing on it. I think that'd be really, really neat, right? There's another knife in the lineup that kind of does that already. Code 4, absolutely deserving of the number 4 spot. Moving on to the top 3, and let me tell you guys, these are far and away my favorite cold steels. These are so far above everything else on the list, it's not even funny. Number 3, the Cold Steel and Demko AD15. Wow, screams utilitarian hard use knife. This Scorpion lock is the real deal, right? Andrew Demko, inventor of the Triad lock, the Scorpion lock, and of course the legendary Shark lock on the new AD20s. Yeah, this is awesome. Straightforward ergonomic design, big and bulky, but not crazy, especially if you're going to be using it outside. This has the whole, the idea of like, because of the way you're gripping it, the lock is even more secure. That idea is much better emphasized in something like this over a frame lock. It's already set in place so well. The way that pin falls into place behind the blade tang, even if you're not squeezing it, there's no way that you're going to disengage it. This thing is locked down. And it's got a little bit of fidget factor that's not found really anywhere else in the Cold Steel line because of the way that the Scorpion lock operates. It is much easier to operate this thing with one hand. The other nice thing about this knife is that it's completely and totally ambidextrous. Even though, well, that's silly because all of the Triad locks are ambidextrous, right? But fidget factor, I guess, is present left or right-handed, right? It's not like it's a right-hand only fidget factor, but it's there. You got to be careful the first time that you mess with it because it's a little bit confusing and there's a lot of blade coming down. They come in a couple of different forms. The light 8015 is $135 for the fiberglass reinforced nylon and the AUS 10A steel, or you can get the G10 and S35VN version in black or OD green. The black one definitely looks cooler in my opinion. For $215, that's a lot of money, but gosh, it's cool. You know, and the only alternative for this, right? If you're like, oh, what's the alternative to the Scorpion lock? Because that's too expensive. The only alternative is the real thing made by Andrew Demko, and you're going to be paying over $400 for that. So yeah, this is really, really good. I love the look of it. I love the design. I mean, in my opinion, the AUS 10A version, the S35VN, pick the one that you like best. Excellent. Moving on here to number 2. The only reason I like it a little more than the 8015 is I kind of like a robust knife that's just on the line for reasonable to carry. And I think the 8010, the also Demko designed 8010, I like it a little bit more. It does not have the same level of fidget factor or uniqueness with the lock because this is once again a very, very robust Triad lock that rivals the 4MAX and the SR1, right? But just the look of it, it's just a short little bodybuilder. It's just such a tank. And if you've watched the Dutch Bushcraft boys on this knife, it is really, I mean, all cold steel knives are probably going to function similarly, especially the more robust ones, but this thing is just a monster with excellent cutting geometry. Big in the pocket, fat in the pocket, heavy in the pocket, but man, if you need something, if you need one knife that's going to be, that's capable of being used as so many different types of tools, not like, you know, it's going to replace all of your tools, but if you just want to carry one thing and you know you're going to abuse it, this is an expensive abuse knife coming in at, well, what are these? 200? Oh, did I not write it down? I can't remember. I'm sorry that I didn't write it down. Oh no, 191. I did write it down. 191 bucks. Pretty expensive. I kind of feel like both the 8010 and 8020 should have kind of stayed around 150 to 160 bucks, but okay, they're still legendary. There's nothing else in the knife world that's like this except for the real thing, which once again, in this case, is made by Andrew Demko for, you guessed it, $400. So this is the least expensive version of this, right? And this is absolutely my second favorite cold steel knife of all time. I love the look of it. Don't like the pocket clip very much, but I love the look of the rest of the knife. Moving on here. I know you guys are thinking he left one out. Surely it's number 1. You're right. It's number 1, the Cold Steel American Lawman. This knife is not only my favorite cold steel knife of all time, it is to this day still, in my opinion, one of the greatest folding knives that has ever been made. This is more compact than any of the other knives on the list, save for the Tough Light. It's S35VN G10, backed up by the Cold Steel Triad lock, a wonderful ergonomic design, a wonderful work tool, right? And they come in at $95, which is really good. S35VN and G10. This is excellent. This thing is tough beyond tough, but much thinner and more compact and just makes way more sense as a day-to-day tool. And honestly, you could probably abuse it nearly to the same levels of everything else on this list, save for maybe the 4MAX, the Demkos, and the SR1, which are just overly, right? You could probably abuse it all in almost the same way, not the tip, but almost the same way, and you'd probably be just fine. This is excellent. There's very little about this knife that I don't like. It's just, I mean, it's one of those things you really have to experience. And the nice thing is that it's at a price where, I mean, this is legitimately one of those knives where if somebody was asking the question, hey, one knife for the rest of your life, what knife do you think would legitimately stand up to what a normal person would just take a knife out and use it for, but they were going to use one knife forever? The Cold Steel American Lawman is one of the only things that I would suggest to somebody saying, I'm not a knife person. I'm going to use this thing for a bunch of ridiculous stuff. I'm probably going to use it as, tools that it's not supposed to be meant to be used for, but I don't want to ever buy another knife again. I would say probably the Cold Steel American Lawman. That's probably the one that's going to be the best all the way around. It's not the most robust, but it's still robust, right? Got great cutting geometry. Not the most expensive, not the least expensive, but a good price, good look, easy to use, easy to carry, all that stuff. Cold Steel American Lawman, absolutely #1 on the list. Guys, that's going to be pretty much it today. This was fun to do. I'm really glad that I finally got to do a Cold Steel Top 10. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, everything in this video that's actually available will be linked right down below so that you can go take a look and pick it up if you want to. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.